Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're venturing, very quietly, into some really dense, misty forests to track down a creature that's practically a ghost. We're talking about the Kodkod, also known as the Guiña.
And it holds a couple of pretty significant titles. It is the smallest wildcat in all of the Americas. And maybe, just maybe, the least understood. It's really a master of invisibility.
Right. So what we've done is pull together the research, the fragments of knowledge we have about this incredibly elusive feline. You know, everything from its really specific adaptations to the unique conflicts it faces with people.
And our mission here is to piece that all together for you, to try and build a complete picture of this tiny predator and the challenges it's up against.
And tidy is definitely the word. Let's have the scale right away. Forget your average house cat. We're talking pocket-sized. Maximum maybe 2.5 kilograms. That's what, just over 5 pounds?
Yeah, barely. And length, including the tail, maybe 75 centimeters if you're lucky. I mean, seriously, many Chihuahuas are bigger and heavier than this wildcat.
Wow. Okay, so that small size immediately tells you something. It's specialized.
Exactly. And that specialization, that's the heart of its vulnerability. It has the absolute smallest geographic range of any cat in the New World. And this is critical. It has one of the lowest levels of genetic diversity ever recorded in mammals.
Okay, low genetic diversity. That sounds bad.
It is. It basically means the species has very little wiggle room, genetically speaking, to adapt. New diseases, changes in climate, invasive species, it makes them incredibly fragile. It's like a ticking conservation clock.
And that fragility comes from being, well, trapped, essentially, geographically penned in.
Precisely. Its world is defined by these massive natural barriers. You've got the harsh Patagonian tundra down south,
Right.
the enormous wall of the Andes Mountains to the east, the Pacific Ocean, obviously, to the west, and then the Atacama Desert pressing down from the north. It's literally squeezed into this narrow strip of habitat.
And that isolation has actually split the species.
It has. The geography is so effective at limiting movement and gene flow that we recognize two distinct subspecies now.
Okay, so what's the difference between them?
Well, first you have the northern Kodkod. It lives mostly in the drier mountain areas in central Chile. They tend to be a little bigger, and their coat is often sandier, lighter colored. Makes sense for a drier environment, right?
Yeah, camouflage. And the other?
That's the southern Guiña. And this one is really the classic image, the dark forest cat. It thrives in the ancient Valdivian rainforest. This southern type is smaller, has a darker coat, the spots are more pronounced. And interestingly, you see way more melanistic individuals down there.
The little mini panthers.
Exactly, those sleek black cats. They do particularly well on Chiloé Island, which gives them even more isolation.
And this Valdivian forest, it sounds pretty special itself.
Oh, it's incredibly special. It's a temperate rainforest, which is quite rare globally. Think cool temperatures, but really high humidity, because the Andes force all that Pacific moisture up. It's like a biological island. Almost half the woody plant species there are endemic. They exist nowhere else on Earth.
So a unique cat in a unique, isolated environment, which, as you said, leads to specialization, maybe even a bit of a genetic bottleneck just from the geography. What else lives in this lost world with the Kodkod?
It's got some fascinating neighbors. It shares the shadows with the Darwin's fox, which is highly endangered itself,
Right.
and the tiny Darwin's frog. Plus, the Monito del Monte, that's a really odd little marsupial, actually more related to Australian marsupials than South American ones.
Weird. And what's on the menu for the Kodkod?
Mostly small things. Rodents, birds, like the Chicao tapaculo. That's a cool little ground bird with this bright, fiery red chest.
Okay, so it's a stealth hunter. How does something so small manage in such a, well, challenging place?
Through being incredibly elusive, it's a master of the ambush. Think silent steps, that coat breaking up its outline, hunting mainly at night. Even researchers with tracking gear have a tough time spotting them. It really rules its patch with an invisible paw.
Huh. I like that. And there's one behavior that really stands out, doesn't it? Something quite rare for wildcats.
Yeah, this is pretty interesting. They swim.
Swim in those cool forest streams.
Apparently so. For a small mammal, getting wet in cool temperatures is a big energy cost, a big risk. So the fact they do it suggests it must be necessary sometimes, maybe crossing streams or navigating flooded patches. It shows a surprising bit of adaptability despite the specialization.
Okay, diet is mostly small stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's the Purdue story. We have to talk about that.
Ah, yes, the Purdue, another icon of the region. Purdues are the world's smallest deer. You're talking about an animal maybe the size of a Pomeranian, just a bit bigger than a large house cat.
And the Kodkod, which we've established is tiny, sometimes eats them.
Well, there's evidence. There's actually video footage taken by a park ranger showing a cod feeding on a Purdue carcass. Now, the big question is, did the cod actually kill it, or did it find one that was already sick or injured, or maybe just scavenged it?
Right. Taking down a healthy Purdue, even a small deer, seems like a tall order for a 5-pound cat.
It does. It seems more likely they target the vulnerable ones or scavenge, but just the fact that Purdue is even potentially on the menu tells you something about the cod's uh, boldness or maybe desperation sometimes. It's definitely high-stakes hunting.
And that high-risk life seems reflected in their reproduction, doesn't it? This is where the conservation alarm bells really start ringing.
Yeah, the reproductive rate seems incredibly low.
Yeah.
What we see mostly from camera traps is usually a mother with just a single cub. They often find a den inside a hollow log or a dead tree, but just one cub per litter. That makes population recovery really, really slow. There's almost no buffer if something bad happens.
So let's compare that. You mentioned its relative, the Jeffries cat, over on the other side of the Andes. How did that work out so differently?
It's a stark contrast, and it really highlights the risks of being locked into one place. The Andes acted like a filter. The cod got trapped on the western side, specializing on those specific Valdivian forest resources. But the Jeffries cat, east of the Andes, didn't have those same massive barriers. It spread out, adapted, it became a generalist.
Meaning it can live in lots of different places.
Exactly. Grasslands, savannas, drier forests. It eats a wider variety of food. That makes the Jeffries cat much more resilient, much more adaptable. The cod, though, its fate is completely tied to that little strip of native forest.
And that forest is shrinking, not just from logging, but there's this other really tragic threat linked to an invasive species, right? The European hare.
Yes. This is a really grim part of the story. European hares were brought over in the 19th century, for hunting, quick breeding game, and they exploded population-wise. So people started setting traps for them, and they still do. They use these awful, crude wire snares. They call them huiches.
Just simple wire loops, not proper traps.
No, just basic snares. They tighten when triggered, designed to strangle or maim, and they're totally indiscriminate. People set them in the undergrowth exactly where codcods hunt.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So codcods get caught accidentally, they suffer horrific injuries, paws get mangled, often leading to amputation or slow death. It's a major direct killer for an already tiny population.
And then there's the habitat loss layered on top of that. What kind of loss are we seeing?
It's the usual suspects, unfortunately. Farming, expanding into forest areas, logging, forest fires often started by humans.
Yeah.
And then there's disease spillover from domestic dogs and cats living near the forest edges. It all fragments the habitat.
And it's not just any forest loss, is it? They have specific needs. They don't like the replacement forest much either.
That's a crucial point. Things like pine or eucalyptus plantations, they look green, but they're often monocultures. They lack the dense, messy undergrowth, the fallen logs, the things a cod needs for cover, for denning, for hunting its specific prey. Other predators, like foxes maybe, can sometimes adapt to those simpler forests, but the cod can't. Its survival depends on that complex, native Valdivian structure.
Which brings us back to the genetics problem. Habitat fragmentation just makes that low diversity even worse, right? Cutting off populations from each other.
Exactly. It isolates these already small groups even further, preventing any remaining gene flow. I mean, just to give you a sense of how rare they are, across their entire range, which is about 160,000 square kilometers, scientists estimate that on average you'd find maybe 2 codcods in an area the size of Manhattan.
In all of Manhattan, wow. They're incredibly rare, even where they're supposed to be.
Functionally very rare.
And yet, even being so rare and unique, they still face this negative perception, this stigma in some areas. Why? How is this tiny thing seen as a pest?
It's a tough one. Historically, and even now in some farming communities, they get blamed for raiding chicken coops. And sources suggest maybe close to half the rural population in parts of southern Chile still see the cat as basically harmful because of that poultry predation.
Even though they're so small.
Yeah. And there's still some really damaging misinformation out there, too, like this totally false belief that these little 5-pound cats can somehow kill goats. It's absurd, but it fuels conflict. Plus, in some local indigenous traditions, unfortunately, the cod is sometimes seen as a bad omen. So some people might kill them just out of superstition or keep pelts as trophies. Changing those deep-seated views is a huge challenge.
But there is work being done. There's some hope.
Definitely. There are dedicated groups like the Guiña Working Group. They're doing vital research, running education programs, setting up citizen science projects, encouraging locals to report sightings to understand the cat better instead of just reacting negatively.
And what about rescuing injured ones, those caught in traps?
Yeah, rehabilitation centers play a key role. Places like Casanoe or Chiloé Silvestre, they sometimes manage to rescue injured Kodkods. There was a really nice story about an orphaned kitten found on Chiloé Island. They nursed it back to health for 5 months and then successfully released it back into the wild.
That's great news. But not all of them can be released, I imagine.
Sadly, no. The few codcods that exist in captivity around the world, many are there precisely because of those trap injuries. They've lost a paw, usually a front paw, to a huicha. They can't survive in the wild anymore. They become these living ambassadors, I suppose, stark reminders of the threats they face.
A tough existence. Are there other positive signs?
Well, people are recognizing road mortality as a problem too, especially as habitats get fragmented by roads. So signs are going up in some areas to warn drivers. And maybe the most important thing, research shows younger generations tend to have a much more positive view of the cod. They understand its ecological role better. That shift in attitude is probably the best hope for its long-term future.
So wrapping this up, this deep dive really shows the cod as a prime example of extreme specialization, doesn't it?
It really does. Its whole existence is tied to that specific, dense Valdivian rainforest habitat. Its survival depends completely on us preserving that forest and finding ways to reduce the conflict with humans, especially protecting poultry better and getting rid of those terrible snares.
So what's the takeaway for us, for you listening? It means saving the cod isn't just about biology. It's about changing decades, maybe centuries, of negative perception. And it requires intense, often high-tech fieldwork cameras, genetics, just to understand a creature that seems determined to remain a mystery.
Which leads to maybe a final thought to chew on. We've talked a lot about its limited range, its specialized needs, and this resulting critically low genetic diversity. So what lessons can this tiny, isolated cat teach us about the future for any species that's highly specialized and geographically trapped, especially when its environment starts changing fast? Maybe think about how evolution itself works differently when you're stuck in a genetic bottleneck.